Gateway Conference, we're so excited to have the Thomas Miller with us today. And man, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I just want to jump in on kind of maybe a fun one. I know, because I know you a little bit, that you guys love Disney World.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, what was it, that moment that the magic was birthed in your heart for Disney World?
Birth. So I went a ton as a kid. So
Wow.
I was born a year before the park opened. So I think the first year or so I was there as a small child, but it's a place to escape, kind of get away from the world. But the other thing I love about it is just that it's a lot of creativity mixed with nostalgia, mixed with future looking. And it's kind of like that. It's almost this nostalgic, futuristic, at least that was Walt Disney's mindset. So that's why I love it so much.
So in that vein, kind of the nostalgic, if you were to pick maybe one old school throwback song, worship song that you could bring back and just say, like, we're going to bring this back to the forefront now, what do you think that song would be? The
song would definitely be "I Love You, Lord."
Ooh.
It's my favorite worship song of all time. And every time I sing it, like every time, every means 100%. Every time I get choked up when I sing that song. Just because it even talking about it, I'm getting choked up right now because it reminds me of the moment when I was a teenager, because that song was kind of brand new. I first started singing, I don't know why I'm crying, goodness gracious. But when we'd say, take joy, my King, in what you hear, let it be a sweet sound in your ear. I just remember saying, Lord, that's what I want more than anything, is for worship to be that to you. So.
And that is so your heart, being a part of our church and hearing you speak and your heart for worship. Yeah. One of the things I think about the old, now fast forwarding to the future, like what is it that you see that are maybe that you're most excited about the worship movement kind of moving forward? Yeah,
I love that it has become so prominent in our culture. And I love that you see artists like Tori Kelly, who's, she's recording these worship songs, on YouTube, and just people are getting exposed to worship like never before. And people who don't know the Lord, it's kind of like it's calling out to something that's within them that they didn't even know they had. And that is they're desiring the presence of God, because we were all designed to be loved by God and to love God himself. And I just love the fact that it's become so much more prominent in our culture. You hear it on Christian radio, where just maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you really didn't hear worship to the Lord. Songs were more about God or about my life with God involved in it. But now that it's becoming so prominent, I just love the fact that I believe it's a work of the Lord to promote his praises. And I think it's going to cover the earth. Yeah. And it already is. It's just beautiful.
I was sitting here thinking about your transition. Now we've talked about worship, but really you've transitioned out of worship at our church, and you've transitioned into, you oversee a lot, almost everything, I feel like. But talk about that transition. I know there's a lot of leaders out there watching this that might be in the midst of, they've done one thing most of their life, and now they're switching, and God has changed their season. What has this been like, this transition been like for you?
So when the night of my 21st birthday, I'm gonna step back a second and tell you why this was, why the transition, or how the transition happened for me. But on my 21st birthday, it was around midnight on the day that I turned 21, and the Lord asked me, what do you want for your birthday? And I'd never heard anybody say that the Lord asks them that, but I've heard since then that, the Lord asks people that from time to time. And so the Lord asked me, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, Lord, I just want that my life would be a light for you, a guide, that I would be a guide for people to find you. And I didn't even know I was called to worship ministry at the time. I just knew that I loved the Lord, and I'd just freshly given my life to God just a few months earlier. And so when I started doing worship, honestly, I always knew my purpose wasn't necessarily to do music. I knew that I'd taken piano lessons growing up, and I had been a part of choirs and things like that, but I didn't know I was called to be a worship pastor until the Lord kind of set me into that. But I knew my overarching purpose was to be a light for people to find Him. And so about a year before I transitioned in my new role, the Lord told me very clearly in my spirit, He said that significant change is coming, almost a year to the day. He said significant change is coming, and I was a little concerned because I thought, what is that, God? Right. And then He told me, as significant as when you left Christ for the Nations to come to Gateway. Wow. And I thought, my first reaction to God was, well, I don't want to leave Gateway. And the Lord said, well, you're not leaving Gateway. So I shared that with Pastor Robert. And then a year later, when this transition happened and I knew it was the Lord, that this was the very thing that God was speaking of, it was easy for me to walk into, because I knew my purpose was not necessarily to use music as a venue, only as a venue for people to find God, which is what I've used for 15 years here. But now I'm using something very different for people to still find the Lord. So to be a light for God.
That's amazing. I was thinking as well, like in your role, this high-level leader role, what would you say to the leaders out there, and even myself as I'm sitting here? What were some of maybe the most important characteristics, values that an executive pastor, associate pastor needs to have in their role?
The three highest, I think, are trust, honor, and loyalty. So trust to me means there's two types of trust. There's gifted trust and there's earned trust. And when I walk into a room, when anyone who works with me, for me, I'm going to immediately give you trust, and trust that you're after the best interest.
Right.
And so it's the gift of trust. So trust is the first thing. Honor is the second thing. Honor means is that when I'm talking to you, I honor you better than I honor myself. The things that I have to say to you are not to make me feel better. If I have to bring correction to someone, which from time to time, that's part of leadership. I do it because I honor you. Jesus showed honor when in John 13 he knelt and washed his disciples' feet. Honor means I place you higher than myself.
Wow.
So whether I give you praise or correction or whatever I give you, the words that I say, I want them always to honor you. And I really strive for that. And the third thing is loyalty, that you don't have to worry about me taking credit for something that you did. I'm going to point fingers in your direction to show people that this is who did it. And I'm going to be loyal to you no matter time or distance, whatever separates us. And loyalty also means to the deepest part of my heart. Yeah. I'm for you. Wow. I'm for you, and I'm not going to be against you. I'm going to be for you.
Wow. Listen, you need to stop this and rewind it and take those three things and write all that down. That was so good. And we can just stop there. But thank you so much for your time. Yeah. I'll really value and appreciate it.
Thanks, Lance.